welcome Chris and Chris and Chris to the Chris and Myers. Sorry.
God. Good morning. My name is Chris Raymer. I'm very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Rock on. Just start off that way. I know. Man, what is it about New York? We just don't sleep in New York. I don't know what it is. Just love it. Absolutely love it. It's the best. Let me ask y'all real quick. How many of y'all were not here last night? There you go. There you go. Got a few back there. Good deal. Welcome. So glad you're here. I want to repeat a couple of things we talked about last night, so we can kind of all get on the same page. Otherwise, you're gonna be looking scared in a few minutes. Your schedules are on the back, and if you haven't noticed that, so we're gonna kind of divide it up a little bit. Each of us is gonna take a step. Some of us will do the lion's share of that step, and we'll move on, and then everybody can kind of fill in a little bit. The idea, of course, is to kind of get through this work at a pretty good clip. We're not going to belabor. I mean, I've seen people talk whole afternoons on 6 and 7. It's 2 paragraphs. We're not going to do that. The whole purpose of what we're going to try to accomplish here is how to simplify this so that we can take more people through the work. Guys, the whole idea behind anytime Myers and I talk together, and I know Chris is in the same boat. What we want to do is we want to work with as many people as we can. We want to, year in, year out, become better sponsors, more efficient sponsors, so that we can help in a greater way. Some of you are sponsoring now and you're beating yourself to death, and so we're going to spend a bunch of time this afternoon. We've kind of moved some things around because we got to go back to work in the morning. But we moved some things around so that we could spend some time talking about 12-step stuff this afternoon. And then Chris O's got 10 and 11 in the morning and got some other stuff planned with the question and answers. And this is going to be a hoot, guys. It's going to be a fun. We're going to take breaks really often for you people that need breaks really often. And the older I get, I got to tell you, and forget the smoking, I have to take a break really often. I just need to throw that out there. But we're going to do that, and y'all come up and ask questions, and we can entertain. Guys, if we say anything from this podium, I know I'm speaking from the other guys too, but I'm going to tell you point blank from me. We're not here to be controversial. We're not here to try to irritate anybody. What we try to do is, I think we're going to be successful if we can make some of you think a little bit. God, we're so freaking narrow-minded sometimes. It's like, this is what my counselor said, this is what my sponsor said, this is it. But there's a whole world out there in our literature. There's a lot of things out there. I want to continue to learn. Next year when we come back and pick up a Yankee game, I got to tell you guys, I don't want to be the same person I am today. I want to continue to try to grow. And y'all can listen to tapes we did in early FOTS back in 2000 and listen to stuff we're doing today. And I think that you'll probably see some spiritual growth. Maybe not, but I would like to think we do. Anyway, we're going to share our experience, and that's all we can do. So again, if my experience is different than your experience, we're still besties. Y'all understand? We're still good friends. It's just like simple fact. Some of y'all were asking questions about recovered, because I kind of hit it last night, and we're going to talk about it some more today. With the idea, how cool would this fellowship be if out there we presented ourselves as recovered individuals instead of recovering, struggling one day at a time to stay sober. Oh my God, who wants to be a part of this? Okay, and you think, well, that's not what we're doing. Yes, it is. Guys, the only thing I can share is from my experience. I'm out there in the treatment industry. I worked in the biz as a clerical worker, administrator in hospital for 23 years. And I mean, I get to see the people that come into our fellowship. How many thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people come in. And I got to tell you guys, when they come out of detox and they realize that we're a 12-step based facility, their hair stands on end. You know, they're pissed. It's like Myers shared last night. Our problem has never been getting people to come to AA. Our problem is getting them to stay in AA. And so some of the stuff we want to talk about. Maybe we could figure out ways that we could be more effective. I got to tell you, you go out there. I just read another article in the Huffington Post of some idiot. Oh, he's not. I'm sure he was a nice guy. No, he's not. He's just idiot. I don't know. But come on, guys. Who's writing about Alcoholics Anonymous? It's not the recovery magazines. It's these Huffington Post, Wired magazine. One of the craziest articles I ever read about Alcoholics Anonymous was in Wired magazine. A guy sitting in an AA meeting, and there's a guy in there talking about, you know, if I don't have daily meetings, I'll die. Oh my God! So you're going to tell me that I got to go to a meeting every day in order to stay sober? We're misrepresenting the program when we do that. Am I knocking going to a meeting every day? Buddy, if you got nothing else going on, go to 6 a day, for heaven's sakes. Get your sleeping bag and move to the AA club. Your chances of staying sober won't be any better than the person working the 12 steps, staying in all 3 parts of the program. That's all I'm saying. Make sense? That's where people are getting their ideas, because they're not hearing from us because we're so anonymous. Nobody knows the people that are staying sober. All we hear is the ones that are getting loaded. Y'all see where the grind is? And so you got people that are not in our fellowship writing about us. And we're not going to take a stand, and nor should we. And we're not an outside issue. But I'm just trying to say, I'm kind of on a soapbox about it forever, about trying to give. Bill Wilson said in a letter in 1942, I've got these little stickers up here if you want one. I got a few of these. It's a little excerpt from a letter he wrote. He says, "Our chief responsibility to the newcomer is an adequate presentation of the program." Y'all get it? How cool is that? I got one responsibility for the little new guy that's coming in. I have a responsibility to make sure he understands what this program is about. Whether he wants it or not is none of my business. Whether he gets it or not is not. But I got to make sure that I've done the very best I can do. That's our primary purpose. Tradition 5 is to carry that message. Make sure that he gets a clear message. This is what we got a couple years ago on the grapevine. Y'all can't see it, but you can come up here and touch it if you want to later. Back in the olden days, this little magazine used to print some of the finest stuff out there, and they still do if you can get some old copies. But somewhere along the line, well, come on, guys. I mean, this is don't drink and go to meetings is about as misleading. Y'all follow? This is the stuff that took me to a suicide attempt in 1987, because I'm watching you just don't drink and go to meetings, but I don't seem to be able to pull that off. Make sense? Bill Wilson, 3-4 places in the book, he talks about the real alcoholic. Now, I've said this from the podium. I had people come up and just, shaking mad. It says, "Oh, you think you're special because you're introducing yourself as a real alcoholic." I said, "Buddy, I'm quoting the big book." Bill Wilson wants us to understand there's lots of people. You can call yourself a duck for all I care. Quack, quack. We're friends. But it doesn't mean you are one. And that's what Bill Wilson, he gets in there and he starts talking pretty specifically about different types of drinkers. He talks about it in the doctor's opinion. They talk about it. Chapter to the wives, there's a big spread in there. More about alcoholism, they talk about it. 21 is one of the best pages out there. Bottom of page 20, it says, "Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving it up entirely if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone." Just for conversation's sake, I'm going to suggest that we don't have any moderate drinkers in here. Nor do we want them in here. I just don't. We don't even hang around those people. I mean, what are you? You're boring as hell. I don't know. Next paragraph. "Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair himself physically and mentally. may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficient strong reason comes along, I'm paraphrasing, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or warning from a doctor, if any of this becomes operative, this man or woman can stop or moderate, although they may find it difficult and troublesome, may even need medical attention. World's full of hard drinkers. Colleges are full of hard drinkers. Y'all follow? Our AA meetings are full of hard drinkers. Not knocking them. They're welcome. I'm just saying there's a difference. Bill Wilson, next paragraph. This is what I want you to see. But what about the real alcoholic? He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair himself physically and mentally, may become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his consumption once he starts. Bill Wilson's talking about the real alcoholic, the person that's suffering from the disease, the illness of alcoholism. Folks, 1956, the American Medical Association got off dead center and finally said, you know what? We're going to verify the same observations that Dr. Silkworth saw in the early 30s working with alcoholics in Towns Hospital. Dr. Silkworth, 16 years, he'd be working in this hospital. He would get European royalty in this hospital. He'd also get little gutter bums off the streets of Brooklyn. And because if you needed detox, there was only one place you could go at the time. There were very few places in the country where you could go get treated, and this is where they went. And Silkworth started seeing similarities between every single one of them. One of the things that we talked about last night is that we spend an inordinate amount of time being quite enamored with our own story and our drama. And again, I'm going to say it. I think our stories have a wonderful place from the podium on a Friday night. You know, I just say, you better have a good story. I personally think you should make up some shit. But nobody's going to check it anyway. Go ahead. You had one drunk driving charge? Hell, say 10. What the hell? God dang. I used to tell people when I was drinking that I lost this eye in Vietnam because it sounded so much better than I got hit with a rock when I was a kid. You know, I mean, a rock fight ain't going to get you a free drink. Make up some stuff. I don't care. In a 12-step call, guys, buddies, in a 12-step call, you got to have a story. If I'm sitting down talking to this guy and he wants to hear about that, there's got to be some identification. We got to understand. He says, "Oh my gosh, you drink just like I drink." Yeah, I do. And then sooner or later, usually sooner, he's going to say, "Wait for it." You know, he's going to say, "How'd you do it?" And then reel his ass in. You know, it's just he's opened the door, counselor. You know, we'll tell him how he never would have asked that question if you'd have just gone up there with a big book trying to stick it up his butt. You know, no, that ain't gonna. He's got to be comfortable, and that's where a story is important. My problem is when we go to a meeting and a little guy comes in and he's obviously a newcomer and he's scared to death. We have any newcomers? Yes. So let's go around and tell how we got here, and now we're going to give him all the ammunition he needs to leave. Make sense? I had a DWI. I didn't check. I didn't check. I lost my job. Never. Loser. Check. Honest to God, guys, my story is different than your story. Y'all follow? Well, we were taught to tell our stories. Guys, in the proper place, it's important. The proper place is not there. 87, after a suicide attempt, I landed back in the rooms and some old geezers got around me and they opened the book and they had a circle triangle back in there. Guys, y'all know the story about that. I've got business cards up here. Business cards. They're my little AA cards. Got issue man on there. And there's a little email address on there. If you want me to send you this information, I can send you. Barefoot Bill is one of the finest reservoirs of great recovery-related information you can find out there. You can go on Just Love Audio and you can download. He's got a free archive deal on there, but you can get a lot of this information we're going to talk about. I know some of y'all can't see this board up here. It doesn't matter. Anything I'm going to talk about, guys, I can send you. It's just no big deal. I can just click. Somebody showed me how to work Dropbox a few years back, and I'm awesome. I can click that. I still can't cut and paste, but I got Dropbox hooked up. Anyway, But I think there's a lot of people in our fellowship don't understand that. In 1955, Bill Wilson came back from Norway and said, boy, this circle triangle is pretty cool. We got a 3-part illness and 3-part solution, and maybe we could use this as a symbol for what we're trying to accomplish. 1957, I think they adopted it. It ended up in the second editions of the big book. And for 36 years, we had that circle triangle in the book. Late 80s, early 90s, a bunch of lawsuits, copyright stuff. AA got tired of people making money off AA, making little circle triangle jewelry and, pendants and bumper stickers. And they just said, we're going to sue these people. And so then they realized that they couldn't, because that circle triangle, we stole it from I think the witch doctors and the Christians. I mean, it's been around forever. There's nothing, we can't, it'd be like trying to copyright a yin and yang symbol. Good luck on that. You can't do it. And they finally realized it, but the solution was a little bummer because they didn't ask us what we thought about it. They just said, we're going to take it out of the book. The problem is, for 36 years, we've been using that circle triangle to stay in all 3 parts of the program as a little touchstone. Any of you guys in this room, guys, that are having trouble staying sober, if you can understand what that circle triangle means and you can stay in all 3 parts of that circle triangle, you will not ever drink again. Fact. Never seen it fail, I know. But the powers that be at the time, I know they had their reasonings, and they took it out of the book. That's why we travel with our trusty rubber stamp, so we can stamp it back in the book. Or you can draw it. It works just as well. But when I sit down with a sponsee and he wants to talk about what's going on, we're going to spend about 2 seconds listening to him about this girlfriend. And then I'm going to say, buddy, turn to that title page of your book. Let's find out where you are in all 3 parts. Where are you at in the recovery process? The bottom, the base of that triangle. Where are you at in the recovery, in the 12 steps yourself? It's not okay that... how many of us know people in Alcoholics Anonymous that are living off a spiritual experience they had 20 years ago? They haven't even looked at the steps. They have done nothing current with the work in so many years. Guys, we want to have a current experience. I don't want to live off. I had a barn-burning spiritual experience 28 years ago. No question about it. It pales by comparison to some of the things that have happened to me downstream as a result of continuing to work these steps. Where are you at in recovery? Unity. Where are you at in the meetings? It's not okay that you're flitting around just going to a few. Where's your home group? Where's your commitment in that home group? It's easy to get lost in a big city. Have you ever seen a meeting schedule in New York? Oh my God. You could go to a different meeting every day. The problem is you're in a meeting, but you're not, nobody knows you and you don't know them. You're wasting your time. Bill Wilson understood that the fellowship, come on guys, I talked about it last night with tears in my eyes. The men and women that I met in this room in 2000, right before 9/11, and how there's a whole bunch of you in this room this morning. Are we together because we're all alcoholics? We're all together because we're recovered alcoholics. Because we're on the same path, shoulder to shoulder. It's a pretty cool deal, folks, to be a part of that. You're not going to experience that unless you're in a home group on a regular basis with other like-minded people. Calling people, networking, visiting with them on the phone. That little circle continue to grow. You're missing something if you're not. Guys, people get grindy sometimes with us because we're talking about meetings. Meeting makers make it. No, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they die like a big dog. But you think we're knocking meetings. We're not. It's a part of the circle triangle. The steps are absolutely imperative that we work. If you want the program, if you want the miracle that we're talking about, work the steps. But guys, it's going to be for naught if you don't go to meetings. You've got to have an avenue to give that back. What's the third legacy we talked about last night? That's the service piece, the service structure, the idea of sitting down with another alcoholic carrying that message. But guys, if you don't have a message yourself to carry, if you don't understand what the adequate presentation looks like, then you can't help another alcoholic. This is not being helpful. I'm sorry. 1971, there was a piece of legislation in the United States. Give me 4 minutes to do this, because I could take 4 hours with it. It's a soapbox of mine. Piece of legislation called the Hughes Act. Senator Hughes Marty Mann, first female alcoholic. I've just finished a book about her. What a woman she was. She was what a pistol. And Bill Wilson, all of these guys. Bill Wilson called it the largest 12-step ever. The whole idea was to get the United States government to acknowledge alcoholism as an illness, to allow treatment centers to open. Senator Hughes was from Iowa, and there's some black and whites. If you look at that little movie Greg Williams did, Anonymous People, there's a black and white little vignette of him standing in front of Congress introducing himself as a recovered alcoholic. What stones that took back then. How many hundreds of thousands of people got sober because of that piece of legislation alone? Started taking this whole thing out of the closet. Let's start acknowledging this as an illness and moving forward. It's pretty cool stuff, guys. What happened was in that deal is that we started opening treatment centers. We had so many people, Myers was talking about it last night, that coming out of these facilities, coming back into our rooms, we weren't ready to handle them. And so what happened is a lot of people that got sober in the 80s, early 90s, didn't get this kind of sponsorship that Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were talking about. They were getting this. They were getting the just don't drink and go to meeting stuff. Y'all follow. And that worked great for the moderate drinkers. That worked great for the hard drinkers. It didn't work for the real alcoholics. Real alcoholics couldn't stay sober. And this is where some of you guys are going to get some tight, because when we're going to talk about this, just a second, we're going to get into this first step stuff, and some of y'all are going to get a little tweaky around this. I'm not telling you one way or another if you are or you're not. I'm saying I'm going to show you the symptoms of alcoholism. You can either relate to it or you can't relate to it. But we got to get people on the same page here so we can go help some other people get sober. How many people? I don't know. I know so many people that have gone to. How many of you? No, I can't ask that question. How many of y'all been to treatment more than once? Raise your hand. Yeah, a whole bunch of us. Let me tell you exactly what the deal is here. There's only 2 reasons that you will relapse. This is an absolute fact. 2 reasons that you'll relapse. You don't know what the problem is, or you don't know what the solution is. Solution's in the book. We can help you with that. There's so many people that just flat don't understand what the problem is. Make sense? It's that little issue man over there. We still want to believe that our problems are external in nature. The external problem is what's the problem. We need to deal with that. It's an important thing to deal with. But guys, the truth of the matter is, unless we deal with the internal, where the illness lives, we're not going to stay sober. One of the greatest gifts those guys gave me in 1987 was the ability to understand for the first time, 7 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can't tell you what it is to be an alcoholic. I drink too much. Moderate drinkers drink too much. Hard drinkers drink too much. A lot of people drink too much. You got to get a little more specific than this. What are the symptoms? And I couldn't tell those guys in 1987. And they opened the book, and in 15 minutes, they showed me what it was to be an alcoholic. They changed my life. Because once you find out you're an alcoholic, you'll do this work. Y'all follow? One of my problems with treatment centers, and I'm a part of that industry, I got to tell you, one of my problems is that we have a tendency to remove the urgency to do this work. We get you in there, nice easy detox out there. We get you some therapy, get you some bears to hug and shit, and then we got paint some rocks, do some art, crafts, exercise a little bit. I'm not knocking it. We leave feel better. These are like little rock stars. They leave and they're just tears. They're. But in so many facilities, we don't tell them. There's that. We let them leave with this lurking notion that their case is different. I got to read you something if I can find my glasses. Somebody handed me a quote one time. We who are convinced against our will be of the same opinion still. Did y'all get it? In a lot of times in treatment, what we'll end up doing is we'll browbeat you to death. All right, you got a little newcomer coming in here. You know, if you can admit you're an alcoholic, we're going to go bowling on Saturday, and you can come. We do it with the young adults all the time in places. It freaks me out. It doesn't matter if you don't know or not. Just fake it till you make it. Yeah. Okay. So the little guy goes, my name's Johnny and I'm an alcoholic. Good job. We've had a real breakthrough today. Rock on. How cool is that? We're going to go bowling. Everything's going to be good. But this little guy doesn't anymore believe he's an alcoholic than a man in the moon. Y'all follow? So the urgency to get this work done, he doesn't believe that his life depends on the spiritual experience. nor will listening to your story. That's why we were talking about earlier. I'd listen to your story. I had my own story. That wasn't my bottom. Let's see if I got that quote. Harry Tebow was one of Bill Wilson's little. He was actually Bill Wilson's shrink, and they were good friends. There's a book of his compiled writings, his letters, some of stuff. This guy was as sharp as a tack, and would have loved to have met the guy. One of his quotes out of his deal, he says, "It's clear that hitting bottom can produce a surrender, and that without surrender, an individual can hit bottom 1,000 times without any significant taking place." Did you get it? I'll paraphrase it, put it another way. Guys, there's not a one of us in here that hadn't stood in front of a locked bathroom door, looking in the medicine cabinet window with tears in our eyes saying, "I'm not ever going to do that again." Schroeder did a beautiful job last night talking about that. I mean, how many of us have done that? I'm not going to shoot any more dope. I'm not going to eat any more of those fucking pills. I'm done. And you meant it. You're as low as you can get. But unless you surrender at that spot and get some power in your life, your ego will rebuild. And within a short period of time, you will start reconsidering that drastic decision that you made. It actually wasn't that bad. It was the methamphetamine that kicked my butt. Actually, I think I can still drink. And so we try the experiment. I can say, guys, historically, in all my years of doing statistics in the treatment industry, most alcoholics relapse on medication, relapse on drugs. True. Most drug addicts relapse on alcohol. We're going to do anything we can to treat that internal discomfort. And guys, we just do this again and again and again and again. I know people that have been to treatment 30 times with absolutely no surrender at any one of those. How do we know they've surrendered? They'll do this work if it's being presented to them. I can't keep you sober. Can you imagine how rich I would be if I could? I can't keep you sober. God gets us sober. Bill Wilson didn't mince any words. Perhaps a spiritual experience is what you need in order to stay sober. The idea and sponsorship that we're going to have this big dictatorial deal and you do this and buddy, if it doesn't involve working the steps, my only job as a sponsor is to help you understand what's in this book. Understand what the steps look like. Stay on your butt long enough to get you through the work. Make sense? At a quick rate. Bill Wilson's on his 9th day in Towns Hospital. This was his 3rd, 4th visit in Towns Hospital. Wasn't staying sober, doing it his way. He finally stays. Ebby's on his butt. 3rd day in detox. Ebby's in there helping him. Brings him some books. Starts talking to him about the steps and actually starts working the steps with him. He does a 3rd step, what was going to be a 3rd step prayer in treatment. He does a little 4th step and a little 5th step. He's working on his amends from Towns Hospital on his 9th day. Oh, but you take your time to work the steps. Well, but when are we going to start getting a little irritated about this? We took it, all of them. Nobody in the early days took longer than 30 days to work these steps. I don't care how bad the detox was. But we think it's perfectly okay today to just say, well, you just keep coming back. Don't worry about those steps. I had a lady look me in the face in Alcoholics Anonymous in the early 80s and tell me point blank, Chris, you don't need to worry about those steps. One day downstream, you can work them. But right now, all you need to do is come to meetings. Well, I'm sorry. That almost killed me. Maybe it didn't kill you. Okay, here's what we look at. I digress. Here's what we're going to look at. Okay, but y'all look around this room because we got some fine-looking folks in here. We got a couple of really homely-looking folks, but we got good-looking folks in here. Y'all look around the room though, but can you tell by looking at this gathering whose illness has progressed the farthest? Alcoholism, guys. There's a genetic predisposition. 15 years ago, you might have argued it. Guys, the jury is in on this. You want to sit there and think that you're an alcoholic because of the bad thing that happened. That bad thing exacerbated it and made it worse. You are either genetically wired like us or you're not. That is an absolute. How many of y'all can see active alcoholism and drug addiction in your family? If you look up that family tree, how many of y'all can see active drinking or drugging up your family? Yeah, let the recorded history that most of your hands are up. There's exceptions to the rule, but I got to tell you, it's because it's jumped generations. I can look at my family tree and give it a good kick, and they just fall out. But here's the deal, guys, because you got to understand, this is progressive in nature. Remember last night I was talking about this kid that I sponsored one time. He had two drunk driving charges. He blacked out both times he drank. He'd only drank twice. Both times he blacked out and got a driving charge. Lost his license about this. Ended up going to jail. 2 times he did this. He was like 18, 19 years old when this happened. I mean, this kid got no social. I mean, we have an older adult facility up there in Florida that we use, and we have people in there, but 40, 50 years social drinking, and it was only at the end of their life that the wheels started coming off and that these symptoms begin to appear very dramatically. It's different for everybody. That's why some of us have a longer period of social using than others do. And I can't tell by looking at you. It's kind of logical. We look at the old geezers with the gray hair and say, oh, well, he would probably be end-stage alcoholic. Buddy, we got some young people in here, because I've talked to you on the phones, that are as end-stage as you're ever. I mean, one more drink, looking at your blood work, looking at your liver, you're in trouble. Most tragic cases I ever look at. Largest death rate we have in our fellowships today, in both Alcoholics Anonymous and in the other fellowships, are the 18 to 24-year-olds. Because their illnesses have just traveled so far. If you've got the genetic marker, if you've got any North American Indian blood in you, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Look around this room and see how many Asians do we have. You don't look Asian. Ice is always. I'm going to look at my head almost spun around as, whoa, you ain't from around here, are you? Asians, I can count them in all my years of working in the industry. I can count them on one hand, Asians that we've treated. There's not that many Asians that catch this illness. It's got nothing to do with the way they're trained or believed or whatever. It's just the genetics are not there. Make sense? It's pretty cool to watch. But the progression of the illness is that there's a short window here. If you were early in your illness, maybe you can mess with this a few times. Come in and out, take it easy. Maybe easy does it works for you. Rock on, If you happen to be downstream a little bit on this, that window, there's a point in time where you will not be able to detox again. You will not be able to come back. Your body simply won't heal. So, I think there's a sense of urgency to finally understand this once and for all. And once you see the symptoms, we're going to talk about it, then you can get well. It's a pretty cool deal. Here's what it looks like. And some of these symptoms were the same stuff that Dr. Silkworth tried to explain to Bill Wilson when he was in treatment. It's the same stuff. But we're all unified here. We separate the stories and the drama. Every one of us in here, if you're a real alcoholic, have these symptoms. First symptom in the book, Bill Wilson talks about, before I forget, I've got a little outline of the steps up here, a little quick where they are in the pages. From the doctor's opinion up to page 23, Bill Wilson talks about the phenomena called craving, the physical piece. It's the only time we're talking about the physical piece. When I put alcohol in my body, what happens in me that won't happen in a normal drinker? Why is it that sometimes when I start to drink, just like Chris was talking about last night, we start to drink and my idea is I'm going to have a couple of cocktails with my meal. Y'all follow? Jim, the car salesman, this was perfect, And then the thought would happen, I'd put a little whiskey in the milk and it would be okay, And it's like, okay, right? What would have been the problem if Jim, the car salesman, had put a little whiskey in the milk and had one drink and went back to work? What would have happened? Nothing would have happened. There ain't nothing wrong with having a drink if you're normal. But what happened is the craving kicked in and he was off to the stupid races one more time. Y'all follow? Oh my God. The phenomenon of craving never takes place in normal drinkers. In other words, the question I ask, and I think we all should ask it, it should be in AA literature, did you ever get sick drinking? Did you ever puke drinking? Yeah. Did you ever do it more than once? Yeah. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Guys, normal people don't do that. I watched my little sister drink at a sorority party one night and got sick. I'll never forget. I'm holding her little head and pulling her hair back in front of her face, and she's puking like a big dog, like, and it's just something that we do on a regular basis. It's like, good girl, and she said, like, I just feel like hell. I'm never going to do that again. And she's never done that again. I watched it at her wedding. Lisa, you want another drink? It's free. It's your wedding. It was her wedding. She says, no, thank you. I'm starting to feel it. And my head spins around. I was like, me too. You want to answer the question or not? You want another drink? She starts to feel a little loose on this stuff, a little woozy, and she says, no, that's enough for me. See, sometimes early in the illness, I can stop. Come on, guys. I've said this from podiums before, and I get it. Do you drink more than you intended every time? Oh, yeah, every time I drink, I get shit-faced. That's not my experience. Early on, I could drink small quantities of alcohol and not get. I'd bring a six-pack of beer home. I could drink 2 or 3 beers and go to bed. Early on. Y'all follow? What I didn't understand is at a certain place in the illness, in the progression of the illness, my craving can be satisfied with 2 or 3 drinks. At 2 or 3 drinks, the craving's satisfied, I stop. What we don't understand sometimes is as the illness progresses, we are less likely to be able to hit that target. Make sense? If I could drink 2 or 3 drinks and stop every time, I would be a normal drinker. That would be fine. That's that little target we talk about. You get this little target and you're hitting it. And if I could hit that target, everything would be cool. Y'all follow? Because when it was working for me, like I said, you couldn't touch me. I'm a better salesman, better dancer, better lover, better. I was awesome when it was working. And then this stuff stopped working, less and less likely that I can hit that target. So the question is, did you ever drink more than you intended? Can you guarantee me how much you're going to put in your system every time? It's a yes or no question. It's not an essay. Yes or no? No. Okay. That didn't make you an alcoholic. That makes you, at this particular point in time, this is similar to an allergy for food. Y'all follow? Anybody allergic to anything in here? Give me something. Dust mites, them little bastards. I know. I don't have a problem with them. I don't. Okay, but it caught me off guard. I don't know. I've been doing this for years. I never heard anybody. The little dust mite. Okay, but I bet you got a tidy house because of it, don't you? No, she's not. Give me something normal. I don't know what do you like? Okay, little brother said shellfish. Shellfish. You're allergic to shellfish. Okay, how did you find out you were allergic to shellfish?
I got sick.
All right. If we go back to your hotel room the other night and we go back over there, look under your bed, you got a bushel of clams under there. Do you have a meeting scheduled for Clam Eaters Anonymous in your pocket? No, of course not. How do we find out? We eat it. It makes us sick. It's the gut. We figure this out. What the problem is, we stop. We take care of ourselves. We move on. At that particular point, if it was just I'm allergic to alcohol, this stuff makes me sick, then stop. Okay, from 23 to 43, here we go. From 23 to 43, we talk about the mental obsession. Now, guys, the steps are outlined in the 100 pages of the big book. About 60 of those pages are the first step. Bill Wilson really wants us to understand and see this. It's not the stupid stories in the back. Did I say that? I'm sorry. It's not the stupid stories in the back. These are the pages that set me free, though, or these pages right here that we're talking about. From 23 to 43, we talk about when alcohol is not in our system. There's 5 stories in those pages that talk specifically about people who didn't have any alcohol in their system, who succumbed to what the book talks about, the mental obsession. And that's what makes this a fatal illness, folks. And this is what a lot of treatment centers don't understand. If it was just the physical piece, guys, then detox would be as good as it gets. All we got to do is get you off those pills, get you off the alcohol, get you whatever the hell we're dealing with, get you clean out of your system, and then you could always remember the pain of that. Y'all follow? We did that with tons of people coming back from Vietnam back in the 60s and 70s. We had hundreds of thousands of people addicted to battlefield morphine at the time. We took them to the VA, we painfully detoxed them, and they go, shit, I am never touching that stuff again ever. And they didn't. The sad part is we labeled them drug addicts. And we shouldn't have. They were not drug addicts. They were addicted to a chemical. But they had the power to stop. Now, there was a small percentage, 15%, 10%, 15%, who went straight back to those drugs. Those were the true drug addicts that we were dealing with. Make sense? If you can stop because of the pain of what it's doing to you, or the detox, or the hangover, lots of people do that. We see them at spring break all the time. I'm never going to do that again. And they quit. They go back to school. And we spend the next week picking up the littered beaches with their bodies, out there who didn't go back to school. The craving kicked in and they were off to the races. Given sufficient reason, can you quit? It's exactly what the book just said. It's a question I'm asking you. Given sufficient reason, can you quit? I'm tired of going to jail. It's affecting my kids. My deal was work. If it starts affecting my job, I will stop. I got a work ethic from hell. I remember a food and beverage director, there was a position open at the Warwick Hotel where I was, and he said, Chris, we can get you in on this food and beverage program here. You can be an administrator. You can do this. Get out of that kitchen if you'll stick with us. But the prerequisite is you've got to stop drinking like you're drinking, because we can't have you on the floor dressed in a suit with... I was fixing to quit anyway. It's no big deal. Y'all follow? And 2 weeks later, I quit the Warwick to open a little barbecue restaurant because I knew I couldn't quit drinking. It's just that simple, folks. It wasn't a bunch of drama. I didn't get the car wreck. Given sufficient reason, can you stop? Ugh. Page 24. Italicized writing. It's got to be one of my favorite paragraphs in the book. It'll make your head spin. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory and suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. That's me. But I'm in AA for 7 years and I'm not seeing this because we're not reading big books. I'm listening to the old guy in the corner with 30 years of sobriety saying, I got up this morning and chose not to drink. Guys, I got up this morning and chose to come to Bill's meditation this morning. I got up this morning and answered a call from one of my sponsees. I make choices every day about my recovery. But I did not get up and choose not to drink. Do y'all understand this? This is not a behavioral problem. If you can choose not to drink, it appears that you're choosing to do it. Y'all follow? You're not. I didn't get up this morning and choose not to drink Clorox. Well, who would consider doing that? Who would consider getting up in the morning and having a drink? The thought never crosses my mind. Not in 28 years has the obsession come back and said, it's time to go take a drink. So there's no choice needed. Bill Wilson is pretty clear about this, folks. You're either going to recover or you're not. You're going to be taken to the position of neutrality, safe and protected, or you're not. There's a commentator who used to have his own television show on Fox News. He's no longer on there. I guess he's a pretty good old boy. But this is back in the mid-2000s. He's on Larry King, Live with Larry King. And this is a quote we got from the transcripts of the talk. He's on there and talking to Larry, and he says, what gets me, this guy'd been to treatment before. He also introduces himself as a recovering alcoholic on TV, which is fine, except, recovering, really? Penis head. What gets me about these celebrity folks is this is the time when some of our movie stars out there in Hollywood were showing their butts, the little starlets were out there in trouble and blah, blah, blah. What gets me about these celebrity folks is that, hey, we have a choice whether we're going to drink or not. Just get up and make the choice not to drink. It's that simple. Millions of people watching Larry King had their thoughts about alcoholism reinforced by this absolute idiot that should know better and didn't, because he went to a treatment center that believed it was a matter of choice. Y'all follow? Yes, I've done writing about it. Yes, I put him on my fourth call. Yes, yeah. In 87, when these guys showed me this, guys, it set me free. They did a little bit further, and they showed me from the physical craving and the mental obsession. Bill Wilson goes on and talks about over and over about the thing called a spiritual malady. He talks about this internal discomfort that also takes place. And it's a guiding light that can help some of us see when we're getting in trouble. You're driving down the road, and you're mad at everybody, and you're irritable, restless, and discontent. And 52 talks about the bedevilments, just yada-yada, prey to misery and depression, fearfulness. This stuff, this low self-esteem, the feeling of uselessness, this stuff is the internal stuff that's an indicator that we're getting sick again. And Bill Wilson's pretty clear about what happens here. We're not offering you a program, folks, so that you can not drink one stupid day at a time and still have to feel this uncomfortable inside. We're offering you a program that if you will actually do something other than just go and sit in another stupid discussion meeting, that something will take place in your life. There will be some drastic changes that will remove that depression, that will remove that anxiety and that fear. I've seen it too many times, folks. When I was on 7 medications when I tried to commit suicide in 1987. I'm not knocking meds at all. I'm just trying to say, for me, for this alcoholic, my problem wasn't all of those other illnesses. My problem was untreated alcoholism. It's got so little to do with the alcohol. Y'all follow? Everybody believes that if you can just leave the booze alone, we'll be okay. That's ridiculous. And you're not understanding what's in the book. It starts with that. In 1935, there were 2 guys got together, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. Y'all know the story. 1935 to 1971, when the Hughes Act was passed, we went from 2 people to 500,000. It took us 36 years to get to 500,000 people. It's pretty cool the way it happened. One alcoholic working with another alcoholic, working with another alcoholic, working. That's how it passed. 1971 to 1976, we doubled that amount. It took us 5 years to go to 1 million. Y'all follow? Thanks to treatment centers, thanks to new technology out there, transmitting the information. I mean, we pretty bang up job. 1976 to 1993, we doubled again. 17 years, we doubled again. From 1993 to present, we're no growth. We're flat. From 1993 to present, we've stayed virtually flat. We've had some years where we uptake the percentage, we've dropped a couple of percentage, we uptake. I mean, we've flatlined all of these years. Why? Bill Wilson wrote in a letter. It was actually in a great old Grapevine article. I don't have the date. Yeah, I do too. It was 1961. It was 10 years before he passed away. Bill Wilson wrote, though 300,000 have recovered. Bill Wilson didn't mean that. Surely he meant recovering. All right, I have to work on my sarcasm. I apologize. Though 300,000 have recovered in the last 25 years, maybe 500,000 more have walked into our midst and then out again. We can't well contend ourselves with the view that all of these recovery failures were entirely the fault of the newcomers themselves. Perhaps a great many didn't receive the kind and amount of sponsorship they so sorely needed. We didn't communicate when we might have done so, so we AAs failed them. Y'all follow? Guys, I ain't taking a shot at nobody. I'm just trying to say that what I'm as guilty of it as the next person. We've gotten to a place where we've gotten really complacent. The treatment centers are sending us an endless flow of alcoholics. We used to grab hold of them and hold them close and show them what was in this book and make them a part of our fellowship. And now we've pushed back on the whole thing. I know for an absolute fact there's places down in Florida where we have a couple of facilities down there. There are clubs in Florida that won't let people from halfway houses and treatment centers come to their clubs because they're drinking their coffee. We've pushed back on the very people that we need. If we understand, guys, and we're going to talk about it this week, if we understand that working with an alcoholic is what keeps me sober, whether you stay sober or not, I don't know. But I got to tell you, Bill Wilson understood it. He said it over and over, and it was pointed out by Lois in his first attempts after he got out of the hospital. 6 months he worked with alcoholics, nobody got sober. Lois flipped it back in his lap. Yeah, but you're staying sober. The old expression, we talked about it last night, you got to give it away to keep it. You got to give it away to get it. This is why we're asking you little young people in this room to please stop listening to well-meaning people tell you, you can't sponsor anybody till you're sober a year. That's killing people. That's why our success rates have flattened. Because if you don't start working with other alcoholics, you won't play this game. It's like buying a big old bag of golf clubs, top dollar, and just going out every once in a while and looking at them in the garage. How cool is that? But wouldn't it be fun to get out there on that nice green grass and go hit a couple of them little bastards? Yeah, let's go. You see? But that's what we're asking y'all to do. We're asking you to just come here and look at everybody else seeming to have a good time while you disintegrate inside. And then when you relapse at 9 months, guess who gets blamed for it? You. I knew that little one-eyed sumbitch didn't want it. I knew he wasn't willing to go to any length. And yet you look on the board above where the meeting schedules are and it says you can't sponsor until you've been sober a year. That's a group conscience idea, which contradicts what the big book is trying to tell us. Make sense? Oh my God. I'm going to do this real quick. When I sit down with a guy, first visit, if he's detoxing, if his detox is downstream a little bit, in other words, if he's not in really bad shape, that first visit, we're going to sit there and we're going to open the pages and we're going to cherry pick that first step. Because I'm going to try to qualify him just like those old timers did me that night. Had they not done that, I'm not sure if I'd have ever gone back or not. Y'all follow? If they'd have just gone around the room and told their stories again like I'd been hearing for 7 years, I'm not sure I would have made this personal for me. But they loved me enough to sit there and explain to me what this was about. I'm going to open the book and I'm going to ask them the questions about control and choice. I'm going to do it with alcohol because we got a lot of people coming in, they're alcoholics. But we got a lot of little dope fiends coming into our AA meetings too. And part of my responsibility as a member of our fellowship is to help everybody that comes through the door, whether that's a family member or whether that's, and Bo's going to talk about that tonight. I mean, come on guys, we're supposed to be helpful. I don't care, a wife, whatever, alcoholics, if a little dope fiend comes in the door, it's my responsibility to help that cat figure out what his truth is. And I can qualify him too and find out what room he needs to go to. That's why we have over, 260 12-step fellowships out there. If AA could deal with it all, other fellowships have tried to do that, guys. But there's some wonderful fellowships out there specific to the drug that they're on. Drug Addicts Anonymous is a big fave of mine today. And it's these little dope fiends need a room so they can identify with what's going on. They've never had a drink, some of them. Whatever. But they're doing dope. We can't just say, well, you don't belong here, which is what a lot of people are doing. chasing them out of the room. We need to help them get to the room that they need to be in. But how do we find out if we qualify? Underneath most of the little drug addicts that I've ever worked with, and I sponsor a bunch of them knuckleheads, I got to tell you, but I qualify because I am one too. But underneath most of those, with a very big majority of those drug addicts, if you ask them the questions and qualify them, they qualify for Alcoholics Anonymous too. Underneath most of the little dope fiends is a garden variety drunk waiting to happen. Listen, guys, I've seen thousands of them lay the heroin down and pick up a margarita. And they are wrapped around the axle in short order. We need to help them, but why? The drama was around the heroin, so we talked a lot about that, but we didn't ever sit down and qualify them about the alcohol. We asked them the same questions around the drugs. Choice and control. We asked them the same questions around the alcohol. Well, yeah, but cocaine's my problem. I know, but answer the questions around alcohol. Make sense? Let's do it. I'll give you a run through. Alcohol. I wonder what Zima tastes like. I always think about when I do this lecture. I always think about it. I never got to taste it. I got sober before that. Do it with alcohol. You little dope fiends that are in here playing. Answer the questions around alcohol. We're going to do it with alcohol or we're going to do it with dope. All right? Same questions. When I put alcohol in my body, can I control how much I put in my system every time? Every time. Well, I usually can't. They always want a rebuttal. I usually can't. I didn't ask if you could usually do it. I said, can you guarantee me every time how much? You'll follow? My little brother back there with the clams and stuff. But come on, buddy. It's yes or no. Boom. No. Given sufficient reason, that stuff's affected my life horribly. It's causing. Hey, what's sufficient reason? Your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, somebody looked across, your coach, a counselor, said, man, you're freaking me out about this drinking. Would you stop? Buddy, I've done everything that my mama ever asked me to do. I tried to do. But I couldn't do that. Given sufficient reason, can you stop and stay stopped? Well, I can stop for a while. Shut up. Answer the question, yes or no. Can you stop or stay I'll give you a classic example real quick. I'll use Patty because there's a deal. We were talking. I've turned into a kind of a shoe whore since I married Patty because she's all about she's about fashion, and she talks about these shoes. And I've asked her sometimes. Says, well, those are nice. What about those? And she says, no, I tried a pair on those one time. They just didn't fit right. That brand doesn't fit right. Y'all follow? Conversation was over. Y'all no. I don't like the way they feel. Done. Simple. What's he talking about? Was it? Y'all, it's that simple. I make decisions every day, guys. But I got alcohol and I continue to rat cage and justify and rationalize and why this time is going to be different. Oh my God. Given sufficient reason, can you stop and stay stopped? No. Checkbook alcoholic. I didn't have to ask you if you had a DWI. I didn't have to ask you if you'd lost your watch. I didn't have to ask you if you got beat up or anything. I just asked you those 2 questions that the big book is asking me to ask you. 2 questions. Do it with the drugs. When I put drugs in my body, do I end up doing more than I intended? It gets vague here. It's not quite the same because you'll build up a tolerance on some drugs, so you will eventually use more drugs. Make sense? But as the craving kicked in, do you continue to use those drugs? Yes. That doesn't mean you're a drug addict. It may mean that you're addicted to a chemical. Maybe you need to get detox. Y'all are clear on that? If I gave everybody in this room opiates, I would have everybody in this room addicted to opiates. If you happen to be genetically wired as an alcoholic or an addict, in that scenario, you will become addicted quite quickly. That's an absolute fact. Drug addicts, if it's just the drug is the problem, when we get them detoxed, then they never go back to it. Given sufficient reason, can you stay away from that substance once you get... No. Typical drug addict. Classic. Go to the fellowship where you can be the most helpful, folks. It's not okay if you're not an alcoholic and you're hiding out in AA because the sobriety's better. Guys, you're going to miss working with thousands of little dope fiends that desperately need your help. I'm not saying you're not welcome. Never would say that. I'm saying go to the room where you can be the most help. Because you're gonna miss something absolutely phenomenal if you don't. Y'all good? Myers, we got a couple of minutes. You got anything to add to that?
Real quick, we're gonna. Let me grab that for you. Hey guys, my name is Myers Raymer, recovered alcoholic. We're just going to take about 7 minutes and we'll be out of here like this. You got little guys that are kind of like this, doing this, trying to bounce around. It'll be bathroom time before you know it. This stuff is always fascinating from a sponsorship standpoint, because I always look at it like that. Page 44 is big stuff, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Like that, sometimes in the front of the book, and more about alcoholism, and there's a solution. There's a line in there that always it always kind of cracks me up now when I see it, and you then noticed how many times they refers back to those two chapters on this stuff. The line is with Jim's story and Fred's story is that when they come in contact with the guy and he leaves and he goes away and then he comes back, and then the guys that they're relating the story said, we told him what we knew about alcoholism. They didn't say we shared our story with him one more time. The guy already heard the story the first time he was there. That's not what he was talking about. They said, we told him what we knew about alcoholism. What the first 100, what the founding fathers of this thing expected us to do was learn how to explain what alcoholism looked like. That's the stuff that Chris was talking about, this body part and this physical part and this spiritual part of this stuff. They wanted us to know that kind of stuff. If you don't think it's a problem, next time you go to a discussion meeting and you bring that up as a topic, watch how quick it will immediately go to the story. You see, it's like I want my story to identify my alcoholism, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. And that's the reason why we stay so confused sometimes, and why people begin to just build these cases against us until finally they just says, I don't want to be there. General Service Office in New York. I don't know when they actually came out with it. I'm thinking 8 or 9 years ago was when they they collected all these articles up. But there's a big collection. A lot of archivists have copies of them now. It's in a big format like this. It's usually spiral bound on one side. It's about this big. And it's a collection of probably 80 or 90, maybe 100 articles that were collected from 1939 to 1944 in newspapers all across the country. And when you read through there, guys, it's fascinating. It's fascinating because what you begin to see is this. Now, remember, there weren't as many meetings. Most every place geographically had one meeting a week, occasionally two, but usually it was just one meeting a week, and it was usually a speaker meeting. And so we didn't have all the stuff that we've got right now. And so when these guys are relating these profound experiences with God, and these profound experiences as they begun to help other people and this kind of, but every article relates the same thing. How I found God and my deepening relationship with God, and then how I got off my dead butt and went out and helped somebody else. Every article was like that. And it wasn't this kind of guys, I don't know, the stuff that we're talking about, sometimes it makes me feel uncomfortable talking about it even when I know that I've got some resolve about needing to talk about it like that. It's the thing that we don't want to even address with people. Some of the most contentious conversations I've had in AA have been with women who have come into AA and decided that they love the fellowship part of it, whether or not nobody ever qualified them. We don't know whether they're real deal or not deal like this, but they seem to get amazingly agitated, old guys too, who get real agitated with this idea that we would be saying anything about their meeting because it's their social time of the week, their social deal like that. And so it's like, God almighty, if you go back and you look at these articles, one of the things that you find out that almost every one of them, they relate this story about how somebody qualified them when they got there. Now listen, you want to start a shitstorm in a meeting like that, just mention the Q word. Just say one thing about qualifying a drunk like this and a deal like it, and people get bristly and they're like this and they come up and they're all shaky and you have no business to do. Excuse me? I thought that was my responsibility. That was what I was here for, was to try to help you see your truth. Guys, for 7 years, I didn't know if I was a real alcoholic or not. I knew that I was a badly behaved man. I knew that I was a kind of a fruitcake. I knew all that stuff, guys, but I didn't really know. Philip Files sitting in a book study, 7 years sober like this, and they're reading page 44 And they're ready. If when you honestly want to, you find you're not quit entirely, blah, and it just goes down there, that first paragraph of We Agnostics, they read this thing like this, and I went, yeah. And then all of a sudden it said, if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. And I went, we're putting chairs up, and I'm going, Philip, I'm an alcoholic. And Philip looks at me and he goes, well, I don't keep coming back. I don't know what to tell you, Myers. I don't know. I thought you figured that out a long time ago. I don't know. And then I went home that night. I remember I kicked the front door open. My wife was standing right inside the door. I just threw the door open, and I ran in. I went, Londa. And she said, what? And she scared her to death. And I said, I'm an alcoholic. And I remember her looking at me going, no shit, Myers. I mean, it's just like, pardon my French, but that's what she said. She said, I thought you knew that. I said, no, that's what I'm trying to tell you. All these years, there's this piece of confusion. There's this ambivalence of whether or not I'm really that guy. But once I was qualified, once somebody actually took the time to show me what it was like this, guys, there was such freedom. All of a sudden, it wasn't your program, it was our program. It wasn't your fellowship, it was our fellowship. And it was just like I was a part of this thing like that. And it changed. Everything about my recovery shifted because somebody was willing to help me see the truth. And so when people are coming in, there is some urgency, I feel, to get people moving as quick as I can. People always, you can't rush them, you can't. I'm not trying to rush anybody, but why can't I sit there on the tailgate of my truck in the parking lot in front of a meeting before we even go into the meeting? Why couldn't I just sit there and talk to my new best friend right here, and we just have a little chat about some stuff like this, and I can help him see what his truth is? If he sticks around long enough, he'll learn the truth. That's what I hear all the time. I can't make that line up with my experience, because my experience is if you stick around long enough and you don't know the truth, eventually you'll build a case against us and you'll leave. You'll get so sick, this internal condition will come back, and before you know it, you won't identify it as restless, irritable, and discontent. People don't recognize this kind of stuff. They just get goofy again. And then pretty soon they're hurting inside so badly that a drink sounds like a real good idea. There was one more. Real quick. There's a guy named Paul F. I don't even know if he's still alive or not. I think he lived in Arizona someplace, but he wrote an article called Reflections of Step 1. I'll send it to you. I'd be delighted to do that. But this Reflections of Step 1 was this big attempt to try to get us unified as a fellowship to start looking at the internal idea about whether or not we were alcoholic or not, rather than making it an intellectual exercise. We tend to want to look at things intellectually because we can connect them up like that. And what Fisher was saying is that if you leave it like that, eventually your head will talk you out of it. Eventually you'll lose the battle in your head. And so we're trying to internalize this feeling of being powerless over this stuff. I was a member of a Pentecostal church in Houston for years and years and years, and I remember countless times having people pray for me, do all kinds of things. I mean, I'd leave that church, go home, convinced I'm never going to drink again, and by 3 o'clock I'd be sitting there with a 12-pack of beer sitting next to me on the couch, watching the Houston Oilers get beat again. I mean, you can tell how old this was. I mean, they're not even there anymore. But y'all understand where was the idea that the decision to drink was being made for me is what powerlessness truly looks like. It's a crazy feeling to finally, and such freedom to know that I'm finally making the decision, that recognizing that I'm screwed, that I'm in way over my head, and that I'm going to drink no matter what. Thank you, Nancy Reagan. Just don't drink. Just say no. I would love to be able to do that. I would be delighted if I could do that like this, but I'm the kind of guy that could never be able to do that. Guys, our next thing starts at 11. What was it? I want to make sure we got that, like 10:30. Yeah, at 10:30 like that. So why don't we'll go ahead and shoot out there, and y'all can scratch and smoke and do things, and we'll come right back.